Hello, friends. Today is Holy Saturday. It's the day between Good Friday and Easter. And I want to do a podcast today which talks about something that happens on Holy Saturday. When I was growing up, Holy Saturday was just kind of like the lull day between Good Friday and Easter. Good Friday, I went to Catholic school and everything, so Good Friday I never understood really what was supposed to happen on Good Friday, except we couldn't go outside and play. We always had off from school, and I remember looking out the window one time just thinking that this is the time Jesus is hanging on the cross, and it was a mystery to me as a kid. But Easter Saturday was a fun day because that's when we usually dyed the eggs and got ready for Easter. And as a parent, that was the day we put the Easter baskets together for the kids and decided how we were going to do the Easter egg hunt, where we're going to hide the eggs and all that jazz. However, Easter Saturday has a different meaning, and one I never really considered before. I saw something actually looking through online, and they were talking about something called the Harrowing, Harrowing, the Harrowing, and it comes from that line in the Apostles' Creed, and the line is, "He descended into hell." So on the third day, he descended to hell. He rose from the dead, and that's a prayer that I've said ever since I was a kid. I never really quite understood what it meant to descend into hell, and but apparently Jesus was pretty busy on Easter Saturday. And as I'm going through this whole soul awakening thing and the soul unleashed thing, I start questioning these kind of things and where they came from. So there is some justification or reasons given in the Bible about where this whole thing came from. There's something in 1 Peter 3, verses 18, 19. And it's just one sentence here. "For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous and the unrighteous, to bring you to God. He was put to death in the body, but made alive in the spirit. In that state, he went and made proclamation to the imprisoned spirits." So this is the main verse that's used to justify the harrowing, where the imprisoned spirits are supposedly the righteous dead. And they were in a place called Sheol, Sheol. And in Jewish tradition, Sheol was a place where the people died and their souls went. And they were eventually supposed to be risen when the Messiah came and there was a new Jerusalem on earth. Jewish people have a different belief or conception of what's supposed to happen at the end of time than Christians do. But Sheol was this place where spirits were supposed to be waiting for something. Jewish tradition, it was the return of the Messiah, and in Christian tradition, it was Jesus Christ and his resurrection and going to heaven. One thing I didn't really quite understand before was that there was no souls in heaven until Jesus died. So Holy Saturday is usually the quiet day or the in between day, but according to ancient tradition, this is what Jesus did. And Christians believe, the early church believed, that this was the day that Christ descended into the realm of the dead, not hell as we understand it, the hell of torment, but a realm of the dead, or a shadowy place where souls have been waiting since the beginning. I've always wondered about this. What happened? We talk about being saved in Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ died for us, and knowing that and accepting Jesus Christ as our personal Savior, and then we're saved. But what about all the people thousands and thousands of years before Jesus Christ came to earth? How are they saved? Apparently, this is how it worked, right? They went to this place called Sheol. It was called Sheol or Hades. In poetic language, it was sometimes called the bosom of Abraham. But anyway, the concept of harrowing, harrow means to break open, to plow, or to tear something apart, and in order to bring a new life. And that was the concept of the harrowing. Jesus gone to this place of shadowy waiting and bringing those souls to heaven. So, that's something I didn't understand before, is that they were not being tormented. The question I had, of course, was, what does that mean in terms of purgatory? So Catholics talk about purgatory. Apparently, purgatory didn't exist when Jesus died. When Jesus was crucified, obviously he didn't die, but when Jesus was crucified, apparently purgatory did not exist. There was just this place called the bosom of Abraham, or Sheol, and Jesus went there and led people out. There's all kinds of artistic renditions of what this looked like. Jesus opening the gates of this place and taking them to heaven. But there was no purgatory. Purgatory, according to the church, was put into place after Jesus took everybody to heaven. Another question I had is whether or not people were purified, right? The whole point about going to purgatory is your soul's got to be purified before you can join God in heaven. So if all these people, we're talking about a lot of souls, right? I mean, thousands of years. There's probably billions of people in this place, if you believe this. Billions of souls waiting there, and they weren't being tormented. They weren't being purified. They weren't suffering fire. They were just waiting. And so, if they were not purified, how did they get into heaven? Is my question, and I haven't found an answer for that. If now we have to die and go to purgatory according to the church to be purified before we go to heaven, why was that not the case for people that were waiting all this time for Jesus to come to the Sheol and take them to heaven? I do not know. But anyway, Christ breaks open the gates. He reaches down to the souls and the righteous, and he brings them home. Anyway, Christian teaching says that even the holiest people, the Abrahams and the Moseses of the world, were still born under the weight of original sin. Now, the gates of heaven weren't closed because they were bad people, but because something essential was missing, and that missing piece was Christ. So they were waiting. Jesus came down and locked the door. He completed their purification. If the way it's taught, Jesus completed their purification through his death on the cross and took them to heaven. Does he complete our purification now? Apparently not. Apparently we still have to go to purgatory. So some early theologians, I always like to go back and check with some of the really smart guys like St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas. These guys even suggested that these souls underwent a kind of interior preparation, a spiritual readiness in anticipation of the coming Messiah. But anyway, Christ reached back, he brought them to heaven, and that's the whole point about the harrowing and Easter Saturday. And that's my little summary for what went on today. The concept of Sheol is not something that doesn't exist really in other religions. Some other religions have places of waiting. The Mormons do, even Islam does, but it's not similar to this whole Christian concept of waiting in the bosom of Abraham, if you will. Christ pulls you out, brings you to heaven, and everybody else now goes to purgatory first before they go to heaven. Purgatory, by the way, is a Catholic thing, not a Protestant thing. But that's the concept. That's the kind of the thing I was thinking about today. I just wanted to share with you. Again, if you want to go to the Bible, to 1 Peter 3, verses 18 and 19, there's another verse. I just looked up into the Bible Gateway and looked for some sources where the Bible refers to this type of thing. There's another verse in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 6, where he said, "For this is the reason the gospel was preached even to those who are now dead." So the good news apparently reached people who even are now dead, and that's interpreted as being people that were waiting in this holding area, if you will, before they could go to heaven. None of this tracks very well with what I've been talking about in other podcasts in terms of spirituality and reincarnation and soul groups and those concepts of spirituality. I'm talking really about how I was raised and the concept of Christianity and Catholicism and what they believed and why Holy Saturday is important. I don't think Holy Saturday and this harrowing has anything to do with New Age spirituality. Anyway, I wish you, regardless of what you believe, a wonderful Easter, which is tomorrow. By the time you hear this, it'll probably be past Easter. But I wish you a happy spring, happy spring if nothing else. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.